8 p.m. I think we should get this show started. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Topic Tuesdays with Tim. We are coming to you live from Harrisonburg, Virginia for our second week of Topic Tuesdays with Tim. You can tune in with us every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. to get the latest from the head of student affairs himself, Dr. Tim Miller. Tonight's topic is maintaining a happy home. My name is Rebecca Barge.
And my name is Carson Lonnet, and I am sitting here as a co-host with Rebecca. I will mostly be monitoring the chat and seeing what questions you have. And Rebecca will be doing a lot of the hosting tonight. But we are excited to have you all here. A couple housekeeping things is that your microphones will be muted as you come in, and then if you'd like to unmute them and keep them unmuted at any time, that's totally great. Feel free to use the chat option to the side to pose any questions. We have some content and things we'll go over tonight, but you are more than welcome to drive the conversation. We are here for you. So I'll let Rebecca go ahead and start off with our first question.
Okay. Dr. Tim Miller, will you please introduce yourself and tell us what empowered you to start Topic Tuesdays with Tim?
Well, good evening, everyone. Excited to have you all here for the second week. Years ago, I started this thing on Facebook. It was called Tim Topics, where something just occurred in the world and I wondered about it and I wanted to say something. So for example, some of my past Tim Topics were whether leggings qualified as pants or not, whether or not CFL light bulbs are actually better for the environment, and why Gmail is better than Outlook. So it was just sort of what was on my mind at the time. If you're interested, the leggings thing is still out for discussion. But really just was thinking about that, and I thought, let's have these conversations with students and see what's on their minds. And so I posed that to Carson and Rebecca, and they were on board, and they were already doing some of these discussions. So we thought maybe getting me and some other guests to come in and help students talk about life and what's going on with you now that we're in a new world. Who knows, maybe even after we're all back on campus, we'll keep doing these anyway. So it was just a way to stay connected. And tonight we're going to talk about how things are going so far at home, and how we can help you all be successful. As a note on that, I met with my student advisory board earlier today, which is a group of, it's about 60 students that are on it. We usually get between 20 and 30 per meeting. And it's everyone from first year students through seniors. And one of the, I asked them sort of, how has it been going at home so far and how have you managed that? And they had a couple tips that I just want to share that I thought were really interesting. One was really funny. The student actually was planning on moving home anyway to take grad school in their hometown when they graduated. And so their parents had this whole plan of getting their room painted and new carpet. And the only problem is she came home too early. So she can't actually be in her room right now because the carpet's not done. So she's actually living out of her bag still in the guest room until her bedroom's done. It's painted but has no carpet. So she just had to sort of negotiate that a little bit and sort of live with it. That same student had a good point. She had a previous conversation with her parents about how to make it work and sort of what the rules were going to be and how they would all work together. And she said that was really helpful. And she said to do that not in a space owned by somebody, but a neutral space in the house. She did it at a restaurant, but she pointed out that's not really as possible right now. Michael, I don't want to steal too much of your stuff here. But her point was, just sit at the dining room table and talk about chores and, when do you have a curfew? Do you not? What kind of grief are you going to get about? Are you doing homework? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Those conversations. And then another student was really funny. She said that everyone's in and out of her bedroom all day, even though she's doing school. And she described that as a little annoying. But one of the things she's done to help her family understand that she's busy and has things to do is she has a paper planner that she's always used. And so she keeps that out on her desk all the time, open to the day. So when her mom or dad or sister or whoever walks in, they see, oh, she's got a real day here. This is not just, she's hanging out in her room, hiding from us, or she's not just watching a movie on her phone. She has a day, just like everyone else. So I just wanted to share those ahead of time. I thought they were really helpful suggestions from some students who have said they've done pretty well so far with family. So we want to jump right into some audience participation. Hopefully either you can turn off your mic and share, or if you want to chat in the chat box. But I want to ask a few questions and see if you all can talk about that. So what are some good moments, bad moments, funny moments, movies or shows you've watched? Anyone seen Tiger King yet? What's the best TikTok you've seen this week? What did you do this weekend? This is just a quick check-in. What's going on for you all? Let's hear sort of what's going on in your lives as you're getting used to a new life at home. So who wants to share?
I can share. Hi, I'm Joe. I'm a junior at JMU. I don't know why I said that, but I have been doing Zoom meetings with I was a pledge parent, so all of my pledge children. I've been having Zoom meetings with them every Sunday night, and then I FaceTime my friends. I talk to my best friend at least 3 times a day. We watch horror films together. I'm still keeping in touch. I don't like texting, so I would usually just show up at my friends' houses. No, I can't do that, so I just call them.
Okay. And how about within the house? How's that stuff going?
It's going okay.
That did not sound very convincing, I have to admit.
It's better than I thought.
Okay.
Yeah.
Others?
For me, it's kind of hard because there's 3 of us doing online classes and stuff like
My
that.
mom and I, we start.
Oh.
Oh,
Emma,
you're
we'll
good.
come right back to you. Lindsay, you go ahead. Emma, we'll come back to you in a minute.
You're good.
So my brother's a freshman at JMU, and so he also came home with me. I'm a junior, and so we're trying to figure that out together. And then my brother's homeschooled, and so he's now doing online classes too. And so having all 3 of us trying to work out our schedule and make sure that we're not running around the house screaming when somebody else is on class, in class and stuff like that, has been interesting. But I mean, I've pretty much just been doing my homework in my room, and so that's worked. But I mean, my brother does keep interrupting me, and he'll barge in my room and be like, okay, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm busy. But I mean, it hasn't been too bad.
But that's also sort of because they're excited you're home still, right?
Yeah. My parents are happy that I'm home, and my brother, I think he's just happy to have other people other than my stepmom in the house, and have more people to talk with. And so I understand it, but also I'm okay, I have a whole to-do list sitting right in front of me, and it's all of these things that I need to do. So
Right. Okay. So it sounds like a boundaries conversation down the road might not be a bad idea.
yeah, maybe.
Emma, how about you?
So I'm actually only in 2 classes with the way all my credits. So I kind of have some free time. So my mom and I have started a puzzle, which is kind of exciting, but it's also of the ocean. So it's all blue, and with water, there's not really a sense of direction. So we have all the edges done, which is exciting. So it's been nice to kind of get to spend some time with them, especially as a senior. I just kind of have realized that this is kind of time that I'm getting that I originally wouldn't have had with them. Because I think I was just planning of getting a job and maybe coming back home for a little while if something didn't fall into place right after graduation. So I think I'm realizing that this is time that I have that I can kind of soak up and appreciate, since eventually I don't think I'm going to try and not stay here for the next 5 months. I think at some point come this summer, depending upon how all this plays out, going to try and reach a point where I'm okay, whether I have a job or not, maybe I go to just pick a city or wherever and try and establish myself there. So this is kind of nice time that I'd love to be at JMU, but this is cool to kind of also spend time with my parents.
That's great. That's definitely a theme I'll be talking about later, so I appreciate it. Anybody else?
Hello, I'm Archer.
Hey, Archer.
Oh, sorry, I just testing my mic. I and my friend last night watched TED Talk about about a comedian reply a spamming email, and it was really funny. So I kind of suggesting to watch some TED Talk while you're boring. And I'm also have a lot of homework you do. And I find my hardest point is when some of your friends ask you to hang out and then you know you shouldn't have physical contact with people. And it's really hard to stop you from going outside, hang out with your friend. I would just have a hard time.
Yeah, the peer pressure of some people who still want to do that hang out in person thing, even though you know you shouldn't, it can be hard. And you may want to get out of the house too, because you might have been in the house with the family all day and it might be time for a break.
Oh yeah, and I'm really bad with like texting and all of those social media. So I need that face-to-face contact, but now it's impossible to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. Anybody else want to share? All right. Well, let me ask the next question. Last time we talked about finding, sort of creating a routine and a schedule and boundaries. Lindsay sort of touched on this a little bit, but so have you all found a time and a place to study? Have you sort of identified that space? Have you negotiated that with your family that when you're in that space, again, Lindsay sounds like we haven't figured that out with the younger brother yet, but you know, how have you all managed that? You know, do you have a place yet? And if you have a place, great. And then how about the timing and managing that with family and working, making sure that they know, yes, I'm excited I'm at home too, but I have a job to do, which is to be a student. How has that part gone so far? Does anyone have any suggestions or anything that's worked well?
For me, it's like I have been getting up at 8 a.m. like every day, and like I'll get myself ready and then I start my homework and like start doing classwork and stuff like that, because all of my classes are doing like asynchronous work, and so we don't have to be on WebEx at a certain time, and so I can kind of like plan my day with what I want to do. And so I have a desk hutch, well, like a TV stand type thing in my room that I've used to have my TV on, but now it's my desk that I've made.
Okay.
And so when I'm in here, I'm like doing my work mostly, and like during like lunchtime or like when it becomes like the evening, I'll go and I'll like talk to my parents and like see what's going on around the house. But I'm pretty much just in my room like the whole time, just doing my work, and that's kind of my space to stay to myself and like my bubble of like, okay, this is what needs to be done. But yeah.
And Lindsay, is that how you worked when you were at JMU also? Did you do most of your work in your room or did you go other places?
I typically was in the library. So normally in the quiet section of the library. So like being in my room is kind of my quiet space of like trying to recreate the library. Like I don't know, you can see it behind me. I have a really big whiteboard that I got from my dad, and like, you know, just things that like I had at school that helped me study and helped me do my work. And so I kind of have created my room into my own like library per se.
That's great. No, I mean, that's good. I think we've got to adapt to our new environments and create what we need in those other places. You know, the kitchen, you can call the kitchen D hall or E hall if you want. You know, we got to create those spaces to make this work for ourselves as we adapt. So I think that's great. Anyone else with things that have worked or things they're figuring out still?
I can go ahead and talk. So my mom is a personal trainer, so she has started doing Zoom workout sessions with her clients. So when she's working with a client, my siblings and we typically end up doing our schoolwork at that time so that we don't all have to hang out, like, so we're not missing out hanging out with each other.
Sure.
So we all kind of have, it's kind of like the opposite of what yours was, Lindsay. Mine is, my classes, we actually are meeting for both of my morning classes. So I actually have to get up at a certain time. So I usually wait till like 10 minutes before the class starts and then get up, brush my teeth, and then just go to class. And I just do my work from then on. And I match it more so with my family schedule for the day, because I'm very lucky that I'm very close to my family. So we like to spend as much time as possible with each other when we can.
Joe, I find it interesting that you're brushing your teeth for a video class. Well done.
Gotta get that dental hygiene in, you know?
I love it. Okay, anybody else? Well, I'll just share one quick thing. So when I graduated from JMU, I didn't have a job yet right away. So I'm not the best role model on this call right now, but um, I had a summer job at JMU. So I moved home in about August, and it was pretty rough for me. And I think my parents would say it was pretty rough for them too. I'd been living the college lifestyle, and as a senior, I didn't have class on Mondays or Fridays. So I had a 4-day weekend every single weekend. And I had a school time job. I worked in catering, so I always worked a lot on those days. But I came home and I had a set of expectations that did not match the life that my parents were expecting. And I think that another thing to remember is that neither one of us wanted me to be there. They loved me and all, but they weren't really interested in me living there again, and I wasn't interested in living there again. And while all your parents obviously love you and all that, this is a surprise for everybody. So my family was getting ready for me to come this whole time and hoping I'd get a job instead, but I didn't. And just remembering that you got to give your parents a little bit of room on this too, and the rest of your family, because they're excited, but also, I think about Lindsay's example, her brother was sort of the one everyone was paying attention to, and now Lindsay's there too, and your other siblings there. So you're maybe distracting from what everyone thought life was going to be like. So life is different for everybody. And I remember I came home, I'm a guitar player, and I would play guitar, electric, not acoustic, in my room whenever I felt like it. I stayed over at friends' houses a few times without calling and telling them what I was doing. I ate everything I could find in the fridge, and I wasn't really a great guest. And guess what? I was only there 3 weeks. But I think if you asked my mom, she would say it felt like 3 months. So I think that you're in that process where no one really expected this, and there's going to be some challenges. And I think that it's okay to know that there's going to be challenges, and that doesn't mean that they don't love you and you don't love them. This is not a lifestyle that you are ready for. And I think mostly what we've heard, has been good. And I also want you all to think about, and I want to transition into any of the other challenges. You could be in the honeymoon phase, right? Right now, everyone's just excited and they're excited to be together. And I just wonder, have you all had any of those quick blow ups? Have you had any of those, moments of, oh my gosh, everyone's in my space, or, why don't you leave me alone? Let's talk about that a little bit, because that'll transition us well into the next portion of this with Michael. So I just want to, let's talk about maybe if there's been any conflict or moments that weren't maybe as enjoyable. I don't know about you, Emma, but I don't puzzle well with other people. I'm more of a solo puzzler. But anyway, are there things people have experienced that, maybe you've had some challenges? One of the students earlier today talked about how mom is giving her chores, and that's just not acceptable to her to have chores as a senior in college who's not even supposed to be at home. So they apparently, as she said, had a discussion about the chore list she was given. So I'm just wondering, what have we sort of run into that maybe hasn't been as magical and wonderful since you've gotten home?
It's funny because I joined the conversation actually after you start talking about that, because my brother and I are currently sharing a room because my aunt is now living with us, and so she took my brother's room, and so since I wasn't here, he had a room to himself. But with the move out and everything, we're now sharing a room, and so since I'm in the room now doing work and all this, my mom actually during this came in and was like, hey, you might want to let him come in and like give him his room back for a little bit because you've been in it all day doing work. So just like trying to find a balance between us and like what our boundaries should be, and like communicating that with our parents that they know and like they don't think that we're intruding on each other and things like that. Because it has been really weird getting adjusted to that since I've been doing work, and soon he's going to have to start doing work because he's a junior in high school. And so he's going to have to start doing work as well. And finding that is interesting right now.
No, that's great. I think that's an awesome example. And I appreciate you bringing it up, Kayla, because I think you want to have that conversation before there's the problem and before something really blows up. One of the things I said in our last call last week is, as weather gets nicer, one of you might be able to be right on, just outside or on a porch, or depending on how your house is set up. But when it's still, it was raining all day today here. So even though I wanted to be outside, it was just not possible. So you have the ultimate sharing of space challenge that you've got going on there. So that's a great example. Anyone else want to share some maybe not as perfect moments?
For me, when I got home, we were trying to like figure out like a schedule and when everyone was having classes. And so with my stuff being super like flexible and I can kind of do whatever I want, like I have a couple of quizzes that I take like at specific times, but other than that, like it's listen to this lecture at this like whenever you want and do this as long as it's done by this due date and kind of thing. I can do it whenever I want. So my stepmom was like, okay, well, when are your classes? What do you have to do? And I was like I get to make that schedule and I can do that. And so, and then like they already had their own schedule at home because she homeschools my brother. And so it was like, I knew like walking in, I was like, okay, they already have their schedule. Like, let me try to do my best to like stay out of the way. And so I like was trying to figure that out, but she was also trying to accommodate me. And I was like, I don't need that. Like I can handle like what I need to do. And so we had that hard conversation of like, I don't need you to like micromanage that. I don't need you to like look after and make sure I'm getting my work done and stuff like that. Like I know you already have your schedule, and so that wasn't necessarily the most comfortable conversation to have, but it was necessary.
Well, I think it also is really key because I think parents assume that you've still got a class schedule in the same way, and some of you might, but you might only for one class, but not for another one. So I think people still expect this to look like college. And I also think parents can't help but be parents. You've been doing this on your own for quite a while successfully, right? I mean, no matter how long you've been in college, think about Emma, in a senior, checking in to make sure you're doing your homework is not something someone's done for you for 3.5 years. And you probably don't need them to do it. And you're probably more successful if they don't. But that's what parents do. That's who parents are. They want you to be successful. And especially if you have a younger sibling in the house, that's what they're doing with them. So they want to treat everybody equitably. So yeah, that is an interesting adjustment for family too. Anyone else want to share things they're adjusting to or figuring out before we pass it off to Michael to take us through some more content?
Kind of jumping off of what you were just talking about, Lindsay. My dad, he's working right now, so he's like moving back and forth. But if he were here, and he's coming back on Thursday, and I'm very scared because he he requires me to work from a desk, and I have not worked from a desk since I left my house to go to college. I just don't work from a desk, and I'm very scared to see what happens when he comes back on Thursday because that's just not how I roll. And I've been like, I wrote a paper last night at maybe like 12:30 a.m. I just have a very different schedule. It all works out well in the end, but my parents are just like, you have to get up so early. And I'm like, actually, my class doesn't start till 11, so I have time. They're just very not used to the schedule. And my siblings, they haven't gone to college. They're younger than me. So they're comparing the lack of management my parents are doing on them. So my parents are telling my siblings, like, you need to be in bed and finish your homework by 10. And my parents or my siblings go like, well, Josephine hasn't even started her homework. So it's a very like, well, she's an adult. And then my sister's like, I'm 18, I'm an adult too. It's a whole pull-off, like a whole ordeal. So it just keeps going on and on like that.
Yeah, it was funny. Last week, Adam Mayers was on the call, another student. And at one point in the call, he went downstairs. I only know this from later. He went downstairs to the kitchen to get a drink. And his dad apparently said, why is there an adult male in the kitchen? Because they heard my voice from the kitchen because they were already in bed. They were already upstairs in their bedroom getting ready for bed, and they were freaked out because they heard an adult male voice in the kitchen at 9 o'clock at night, and it freaked them out. I only know this because I've met his mom before, so she sent me a message the next day that my voice freaked them out that night because why is anyone in the kitchen at 9 o'clock at night? And Adam was probably thinking, I'm going to be in the kitchen 3 more times before now and 1 a.m. when I finally go to bed. So I think, yeah, your lifestyle just is very different than what parents are used to, and it's different than what they let you do when you live there. And I think there's now this, what will they allow you to do? And you're like, what do you mean allow me to do? I'm doing college and I'm doing well. And I think it gets back to that setting some expectations and building that sort of conversation. So I know we're about the halfway point. We want to transition to Michael giving you some great content. So I'll pass it off to Rebecca, who's going to take us down that road.
Great. If you are just joining us, welcome everybody. Welcome to Topic Tuesdays with Tim. We've had some great conversations so far, and we're excited for the next half hour. If you're just joining us, we are live with Dr. Tim Miller, and we will be live every Tuesday evening with Topic Tuesdays with Tim. And we are going to transition to some helpful hints from our Associate Director for Leadership, Michael McCleve.
Greetings, everyone. Glad to be on the call. It's been great hearing of the successes you're having and of the challenges that you might be having. I'm hoping to share with you, how do you have some of those conversations that you were just talking about? How can you have them maybe before they get to a breaking point and things really, everybody's mad at each other or whatever, they're all off in their separate spaces and avoiding each other and all of those kinds of things. I'm going to be sharing my screen just so you get some visual anchor points along with this. If you are currently in a grid mode and seeing all of the little icons with all of the pictures, in the upper right hand corner you'll see an icon that says speaker view, and if you click on that, what it will do is it will put a band of each of the little icons across your screen, and then the main person who's talking will show up in the main part. And the reason you'll do that is because when I share my screen here in just a moment, then you'll see the screen enlarge, and it'll be easier to see than if you're in that gallery view. So just a little tip there. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen to bring up some visuals here for us to take a look as I walk through a little bit of this. I call this Conversation Coping Skills at Home. The intention is for you to be able to understand there are skills that you can learn that can help you have better conversations at home. Now, the first thing I want to let you know is at Google Doc, there's a Google Doc, sorry, I get this straight in my own head. There's a Google Doc with some notes. That link right there, I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat. If I can find my, I had it out here in just a moment ago. Where's my chat feature now? Now I can't see it. When I shared my screen, I lost it. There it is. I've got it now. I'm going to put that in there. So if you want to go out there instead of watching the PowerPoint show or whatever, that's fine. However that works for you is great. Just want to let you know that I create a little document you can follow along with and go at your own pace later and keep that view. I want to start out with 3 keys for success. The first key that I think of, and Tim mentioned this at the top of the call, about being sure that you're paying attention to where you're having the conversation, and I'm going to add the timing of the conversation. And by that, it's usually not a great idea to get into these conversations at the moment the emotions are high. And so if you're able to avoid that, if you can pause and come back to it later, that's always a good idea. The place, a neutral place, maybe at the dining room table or somewhere where it's not any one person, they don't own that space or they don't have that space as their primary place. I think it's a very good point that Tim made. So pay attention to your timing. The second one is you want to turn the hard conversation or that difficult conversation into a learning conversation. If you can keep in mind, I want to learn in this moment, then you're going to be spot on, and that's where you're going to go. And I'm going to share with you some skills and some steps that you can take to help you get there. The third point that I want to mention is the one that you're going to spend more time listening than you are talking. I know we say this is going to be having a difficult conversation, and it sounds like you're going to talk and say just the right words and everything will be okay. The reality is you're going to do a lot of listening because that's how you learn, is when you're hearing what the other person's saying. So keeping those things in mind, let's dive right into what are the skills, those learnable behaviors that you can master. So this first one is you want to start with an invitation into the conversation. This isn't really all that hard, but we don't usually do that. We usually just dive right in and start talking at each other. And you want to start by inviting them in. And there's a couple of really key elements here. The first one is you start out by sharing, I know that there's this problem. And the easiest way to do that is to say something like, I'd like us to talk about some of the challenges we've been having since I'm staying home for the rest of the semester. Or can we talk about the argument we just had? Or anything like that. You're letting them know, I'm aware that this was a problem and that it didn't go well. That's always a psychological opening that they will appreciate, even though they may not say anything about it. Before they say anything else, you're not really asking them a question of, can we have this conversation, as much as you're acknowledging, I know we had the argument, I'd like to talk about it. And highlighting the situation is you saying, this is my struggle or this is my problem. And I'm thinking that maybe that might be your problem. So you're trying to help them see, yeah, I know there's two sides to this situation. It's not just me. And so an example might be, I've been thinking about it and I'm really struggling with getting enough quiet time to study. And I don't know, I guess you might be struggling with my schedule, that I'm up late at night and maybe I'm not getting out of bed when you would normally expect me to. When you say it that way, as you're including this invitation and starting out with it, you're letting them know that you really are trying to think about their side of the situation. And that opens up the door for this to become a learning opportunity and not just a one-sided conversation or an argument. The third key with this invitation is you want to emphasize the outcome. What are you trying to get to? What's the point of having this discussion? So in the invitation here, after you talk about what you see as your problem and what you think they might be having a problem with, it's just something as easy as, I thought we could work out a solution that might be best for both of us. The key to emphasizing the outcome is, I want this to be good for both of us. It's not just what I want, and it's not just what you want, but I'm hoping we talk together and reach an agreement that both of us will agree to, get along with, and like. That's your key goal at this point. Now, those 3 steps set up the most important thing that happens next, because you'll notice you've only hinted at the problem. You've only hinted at what you think their part of the problem might be. And so what you're doing right now is you then let them go first. You're going to turn the conversation over to them, literally inviting them by a question. How do you see the situation? Or would you start and help me understand your perspective? You're asking them to share what they see as the issue. And of course, that opens the door for you to start learning from their side of the story. It also might in some way diffuse any emotions they might be experiencing, because you've given them the first chance to start talking. And the next really critical step, step 2 in all of this, is you just listen. This is the hardest thing to do. Remember at the beginning, one of the keys to success I said was you'll do a lot more listening than you will talking. And so at this point, you're not going to try and think of any kind of a response to anything they say, because you're not going to try and debate or argue or correct them if they said something wrong. Remember, they're sharing the way they see it, and you're here to learn. So just listen, and that voice in your head that's telling you what to say next, just tell it, I know you'll get your turn in a few minutes. Your turn is coming. I will get a chance to talk. Because the way this process of setting up and having this learning conversation, it gives both of you the chance. Right now, it's the other person's turn. So what you're going to do when you're not listening is you're just going to act like a mirror. Literally think of yourself as a mirror. No judgment, no personal opinion, just reflect what they say. Or if there happens to be a lot of high emotion, you can just simply share back what they're feeling or what you sense is their emotion. So let me give an example. This is just some thoughts I had. So maybe you're in a conversation with your mom. You invited her into the discussion with you, and you're hearing her go first. And she says something like, well, I just think you shouldn't stay up so late. It's not good for your study habits, and I think you need your sleep. Not thinking of what you respond, but being a mirror, you might say something like, you'd like me to go to bed earlier and get more sleep. You'll notice I didn't make that a question. It's a statement. You're just reflecting back the statement that in this case, your mom gave with you. You're not giving an opinion. You're not judging it. You're not saying it's good or bad. You're not arguing. You're not correcting. It's just a mirror of what she said. Now, if you did that, if you said, you'd like me to go to bed earlier and get more sleep, your mom very well, just likely might say, well, yes. And I also think, and then she's going to keep talking. This is exactly what you want to have happen, not because you want her to pile on top and add more and more and more, but you want her to keep sharing what's really in her heart and what she's really thinking and feeling. And that's what this type of listening does. So she's likely to keep adding a few more things, and then she'll pause for a moment and you're going to reflect again. You're just going to keep being the mirror until at some point there will be a signal. It's almost like a flare gun going off if you're paying close attention. Because at some point when your mom feels heard, she thinks you really understand because you've just been reflecting back to her, the signal will go when she asks you a question. And the question will be something like, so don't you think that's true? Or what do you think? Or she might say, I want to know what you have to say now. So when she feels really heard, that question will come. And the interesting thing is, at this point, there's almost no hot emotion. There's no conflict or intense exchange. Things are calm. And it's a great conversation and you're learning. Now, when you get that signal, when that question comes, don't jump in just yet. One more time, you need to act like that mirror. And so if you get that question when your mom says, well, what do you think? You're going to say something like, you'd like to hear my perspective, or you're wondering what I'm thinking about this. And if she's ready, she'll say, yeah, I really do. And now it's your turn. But she might not be quite ready. She thought she was, but when you say, you'd like to hear my perspective, she might say, well, no, actually, and then she might add something else. So you go back to being a mirror again, and then that question will come, the signal will happen. And then when she says, yes, I would like to hear your perspective in confirming for you, your next step is, great. Now I get to share. It's my turn. The secret to being able to listen without responding is knowing that this step is coming. So you always have that guarantee in your back pocket that this is going to happen. And when it comes to sharing your side, you really don't start by sharing your side. You really start out by summarizing their side. You're really going to say, oh, I've heard you say that this, and this are the real concerns that you have. And it really seems like you feel this way, that you really care and you're worried, or whatever their emotions they might have expressed. So there's a quick summary, and you'll get their nodding of the head, or their, yeah, that's right. So you're now together on the same page. And now you get to share your side. Now is when you get to say, I'm really glad you shared. Here's how I see the situation. These are the concerns I have. This is the difficulty I'm having. This is the schedule that I'm used to keeping. This is the success I've had with it. And so you get to express both your concerns, your emotions. You get to share everything about your side. So you state how your problem, how your side looks. Because you summarize there, you conclude by just summing it up and saying, so together we've learned that you see these are the problems, and I've shared that these are the problems. So we get to work together now. You literally can look out in front of the two of you and say, there's the problem. It's almost like it's sitting on the dining room table now. It's in front of you. It's no longer bottled up inside of either one of you, and you've shared. So you've got this mutually agreed perspective, and you get to say, there's the problems. Let's work out a solution for both of us. In short, you've spent the time creating an environment where you can learn about their concerns, they can learn about yours. Now, I'll be honest with you, this is describing, of course, the ideal situation. I can also add, however, that I've had a lot of these kinds of conversations in the course of my experience. And when you follow this process, it actually really does work the vast majority of the time. There's clearly some situations where it might be difficult, but happy to talk through those and work with them. So again, in case you didn't get that, that link, look for that in the chat. But I also want to share with you another one that if you would like to go through a way to coach yourself through the conversation before you have the conversation, if you just go to the Duke's Leadership Center website there, I put it on the screen for you. We've got in the menu, it's right on the homepage there, it says Conversation Coaching. And we have members of the leadership team who are offering virtual office hours and appointment times. You can set up an appointment and you can say, now, how do I do this again? Or what were those steps? Or I'm struggling with this part of it. I just want to know. And our conversation coaches, they're not going to be the people who are therapists. They're not going to solve the problem for you, but they're going to help you know, how do I have the conversation? What are the steps I can take? And you can be talked through that. So that's kind of my little bit here. I'm happy to take questions, or I know we have some great folks on. Tim can answer, and others that can chip in and say this is their experience, but happy to take that. I'm going to be quiet now because I think it's time to take some questions.
Wow, thank you, Michael. We've heard some great tips for creating a learning conversation. So thank you very much for this. We'll transition back to Dr. Miller. If you have any questions about the content you've heard tonight or about classes, campus, please unmute your mic or to ask the question or write it in the chat.
I don't have any question. I only have a comment that I wanted to make. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that. I feel like it is very helpful. And, you know, as a graduate student at JMU, one of the things that I struggle with is listening. You know, listening is a very challenging assignment for me because I like to jump right into the conclusion of the problem. And I think it's very important to listen and be able to hear different point of view from different people. Because sometimes I may feel like, okay, this is the right approach to solve a particular problem and end up being wrong. So listening is absolutely essential. And the other thing that came up to my mind, you mentioned about the ability to acknowledge that the problem exists. Like for me, for the most part, it happens when I'm working into groups, like when I'm doing a group project, school group project, stuff like that, even at work. Sometimes we have different point of views. I'm thinking that a particular issue should be solved in this way, but the other person feels like it should be solved in a different way. But I think in order to solve a particular problem, it's good to recognize, well, those differences do exist, but then we can work collectively in order to fundamentally address the issue. So I just felt like your presentation was very, very, very helpful.
Thanks, Nico. I appreciate that.
One of the things I'll share, just putting a little personal information out there. I'm about to do what you all are doing. On Friday night, I'm going to go back to Northern Virginia. I came to JMU in 2018 as the vice president, and my wife, Jamie, had a really important and her dream job in the Pentagon. And so she was in the Pentagon, and I moved to Harrisonburg, and she lived there, and I live here. So for the last 22 months, we've been living separately and seeing each other on weekends. So usually about 4 or 6 days a month. But on Friday night, I'm going to go back up. I'm keeping my job. I just realized I should say that. I'm still doing this job and I still love it. But if I'm going to be stuck somewhere for 2 months, I'd rather be with her and my dog rather than here alone. But we haven't lived together in 22 months. And I can already tell that she wants me to be there, but she's pretty concerned about it because of very different lifestyle things. Jamie is in bed by 9 every night and reads usually until about 10. I'm routinely up until 12 or 1. Um, the lifestyle pieces are interesting. All my desk stuff is here in Harrisonburg, so I won't have a desk there. So even this week, she sort of was already assigning me a space in the house where I was going to be allowed to work, so I didn't disrupt her patterns. So I just think that we're all figuring this out. I think about Carson and Rebecca and Michael, now working in their home environments as well. I think we all probably have some lessons learned, some things we've done well and things we haven't done well. I mean, it's really funny. When I've gone back to Northern Virginia over the last 22 months, I have no food in the house that I like, because why would there be my food in the house anymore? So when I show up, there's nothing for me to eat. And then when I get it, there's no room in the pantry. So then I pile it up on one of the countertops, and then I'm told I'm not putting food away. So we're all figuring this out together. So I really just share that with all of you, because we're all figuring that out. The other thing I'll just share, just as a life thing, the one area I'm not concerned about is bathroom. We each have our own bathrooms in this house, and I will tell you, as someone who's about to be married for 20 years, a key to a marriage is separate bathrooms. So whatever you look for in an apartment, a house, whatever, get separate bathrooms. It removes so many things that I never have to worry about, because I'll be honest, hers is much worse than mine. But she has more to do. Like, I have no hair. That's really simple. So it's just, I'll just put that out there as a side note. Get separate bathrooms no matter what you do.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Those are some excellent tips, tricks for students to walk away with this evening. What other questions do you have, students? We have about 10 more minutes, and we would love to hear from you.
I really want to know what Joe Exotic has on his mind. Or not.
Joe, have you finished Tiger King?
I don't think Joe's going to join us, really. Worth a shot.
You can check out his comments in the chat if you're.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you want to do the announcements and I can do the wrap-up piece, and we'll see if anything else pops up for folks?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes. Carson, please take it away.
Okay. So one thing you'll be seeing pretty soon in the next few days, I do believe, is that if you're looking for any resources or engagement opportunities, especially virtual things, they will have kind of a hub website for that. And so you won't have to go searching into every other portal at JMU. There'll be one kind of catch-all, and hopefully that'll be helpful for you as you're looking for anything you might need related to JMU, class resources, and engagement. One thing that you may have received at this point is an email from someone from campus, from the Duke's Outreach Guide. So you've been assigned someone that's a full-time staff member here, and that they're reaching out to you as a student just to make sure that you're doing okay and to ease with any transition. So feel free to reply. You don't have to if you don't need anything, but just know that that person is there specifically for you and a great connection into campus. And if you haven't heard from anyone, just let us know. We can also make sure and double check on that for you.
And before you move on, for the students on the call that are on video, how many of you, show of hands, have heard from your guide?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, great.
Awesome.
Wait, what? Is it from our school email? I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Just the school email? Okay.
Yeah, it could be on your dukes.jmu.edu email.
Okay.
And the title of the email should be your Duke's Outreach Guide, your personal connection to JMU. So if you search some of that, you should find it. Some of them are coming in waves still, so if you don't see that, also just let us know. And you can always connect to any of us on this call as well. Rebecca, Tim, myself, and Michael are all willing to be obviously a support and resource for you. We can drop our emails in the chat so that you do have someone to follow up with if you have any questions on content or any questions just in general about campus. We are here for that too. One thing Michael mentioned that's coming out of the Student Leadership Center is conversation coaching. So if that's something you're interested in having, please feel free to reach out through the request that he mentioned in the chat. We will have this recording placed somewhere so you can review that as well. There's also going to be strengths coaching, which is really exciting. And so if you're interested in kind of doing some personal development while you're sitting at home, that's a great opportunity, and you'll probably see more information on that in the next few days as well. Tim, you want to get out for our closing?
Sure. So, so our topic for next week, we're going to focus on preparing for life after JMU. I know you don't want to think about that yet, but you need to start thinking about it. Whether you're a senior or not, or a graduating grad student or not, we'll have a lot to talk about with getting ready for that life after. So hope you all will tune in, tell your friends to join us. We'll be doing a lot. I'll be talking to CAP and see if someone from CAP wants to join us, or if they want to provide some resources that we can share. And then one of the things I just want to do in ending these every week is just share sort of a final thought and a quote. So I wanted to leave you with a quote, which is, "Home is a place you grow up wanting to leave and grow old wanting to get back to." You sort of got back here when you didn't plan on it. I know this wasn't in your plan, but there's really something special about the opportunity you all have right now. A lot of this goes back to some what Emma was saying. You're getting to see siblings grow up a little bit more than you would have if you were away. And just personally, as someone who has lost his mom, I'd give anything for her to bother me about chores at this point in my life. So to have that opportunity to be with them and have those conversations and really cherish this unexpected time together over the spring and the summer. And remember that none of us are going to forget this in our lives. I mean, you're living in a historic time now, and I think you're going to experience this with these people, and you're going to remember it. So this is the history book type of stuff here. So I expect this will end up being a little bit of both good and bad, but just make sure to pay attention. And then I'll end with a classic quote from the great Ferris Bueller. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you can miss it. So don't miss this, Dukes. It's too important. Ask you all to take care of yourselves, and we look forward to talking to you next week.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Have a great night. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.